Hi guys, Tony from CBFU, and today on Flashbacks we're going to be covering episode 5, Plastique. Alright, for starters, this episode dives more into what Barry Allen's powers do for him. 1, he can't get drunk. 2, he can run up walls. And 3, he can run on water. In fact, this episode is really more about testing the limits of how fast he can go. So the titular character of this episode is Plastique, better known as Bette Sans Souci. Now in the comics, she started out as a firestorm villain. Her power set is more or less the exact same that you see in the show. Anything she touches, she can cause to explode. Although in the comics, she's always been shown to have way more control over it. So not everything she touches can potentially explode. She essentially gets to choose. If you're actually interested to see more about this character, I strongly recommend the trade Suicide Squad Trial by Fire, or checking out the current Future's End book. But I think Trial by Fire actually is a better, more succinct idea of the kind of person she is. What's interesting to note about this episode, where last episode introduced a lot of Firestorm elements, this one actually introduces a lot of Captain Atom elements. Starting with the men who made Captain Atom who he is, General Wade Eiling and Harold Hadley. Now, Wade Eiling is a general both in the comics and in the series, television series. He's more or less the same character. His most prominent role in the DC Universe up to date was during the Grant Morrison arc of JLA, where he finds out he has a tumor and undergoes a procedure that makes him a far larger threat. Harold Hadley is actually the doctor who actually made Captain Atom who he is. While on the subject of Captain Atom, he's actually in this episode. Well, sort of. See, in this episode it turns out that Plastique is staying with someone by the name of Cameron Scott, and in the comics, Captain Atom is Nathaniel Adams, but he goes by the alias Cameron Scott, so it's very likely that it's still one and the same character. Now, whether or not they decide to use his character in the CW universe is yet to be seen, but I thought it was a pretty nice nod to the character and to establish him early on in this universe. Another thing I'd like to point out, it's not so much something from this particular episode, it's a character that's been in it from the beginning. It's Captain Singh. I just wanted to bring up the fact that he's a character that was created just before the New 52 launch in the Flash series from Francis Manapul and Jeff Johns. He's essentially the head of the Central City PD. He's Director Singh in that. Here he's Captain Singh. It's just something I wanted to bring up that I forgot from the pilot. Now in this episode, Iris West actually starts her blog. In the comics, Iris is actually a reporter, not unlike Lois Lane and Linda Park. The blogging thing is more or less just updating the character, I'd like to think. In the New 52, a lot of some of the reporters, specifically Clark Kent, went from being a reporter to a blogger to just kind of modernize the character, and that's essentially what's happening here. So to disguise his voice, Barry actually causes it to vibrate. It's not something he's actually done in the comics, or at least not something I'm familiar that he's done in the comics. But the character Zoom does something very similar. He speaks so fast that all his words are written in like these run-on sentences. I think this is just an interesting way to Barry to mask his voice from people that could actually recognize him. So in this episode, Barry calls Plastique a human bomb. Human Bomb actually being another DC character that they worked into the script. He's a character who has a very similar power base to Plastique. I believe he started in the Silver Age. He did have a very short run 4-issue series in 2013 if you're interested in checking it out. But it's essentially just, another little Easter egg that they tucked in there. Alright, so lastly in this episode we get our first look at Gorilla Grodd. Now in the show, he's the product of an experiment between Eiling and Wells. In the comic, he's a highly intelligent, genius level 8, gorilla, from Gorilla City. He has telepathy, he has telekinesis, he attacks with like these telekinetic bolts. If you're looking for specific issues to check him out, I strongly recommend the Jeff Johns run, Flash issue 192. It's like a 3-part issue, a 3-part series I should say. He's also appeared years prior to that, and he's been part of the DC Universe for ages. But I thought that was a nice little highlight of what the character is capable of. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this episode of Flashbacks. Please be sure to like this video if you're enjoying the series, comment down below if I've missed anything, and subscribe to our channel so that way you stay up to date with our weekly podcasts, reviews, and this show.